How many have suffered like I have suffered? For years my tragedy will be remembered. How many have suffered like I have suffered? For years my tragedy will be remembered. In a cage of suffering, I met my plight, and with my tears a message of grief I write. Its ink overflows with the tears of my sight, seeing my crushed child and house set alight. Flames that ignited my sorrows with its light, if they were poured into days, they'd become light. To an ocean of sorrows I surrendered. For years my tragedy will be remembered. Muhammad, with my tears Ali would bury what some saw as death. I saw a tragedy. I surrendered myself to his soul's beauty and embraced his death as a calamity. My tears filled a wound that his death left empty. I was a part of him a part of me. I used to cry his name and no one answered. For years my tragedy will be remembered. Wandering the Lord of the world an orphan, two weight things from Fatima they'd stolen. The inheritance of my father taken, and my husband's right to lead Ahmed's nation. To a world of injustice we'd awaken. It lay scattered with the graves of my children. A world of murder and hatred we'd entered. For years my tragedy will be remembered. The etiquette of ziyarah and majalis. All of our lives we hear that when we attend a majlis of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we are there with Lady Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, who is sitting and mourning alongside us. Also, we are told that a person does not simply go on ziyarah to the Ahlul Bayt or to Al Muhammad alayhim salam, but rather we are invited. We are the guests of the Ahlul Bayt. With this in mind, I want us to reflect for a moment and ask ourselves, are we really acting like guests, or are we, God forbid, disrespecting the Ahlul Bayt through our attitude? When we attend a majlis of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, or when we walk towards one of their harams, their shrines, we are entering a sacred place. We're turning our backs on this material world and walking into the pieces of heaven on earth. Thus, our etiquette and our behavior should reflect this. For example, in Mafatih al-Jinan by Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi, he writes that when a person intends to perform a ziyarah, then they should perform ghusl before leaving, and they should avoid any vain talk, disputes and heated arguments when they're making their way towards the shrines. And he touches on a beautiful point here, because how many of us watch our tongues when we are going for ziyarah or even to a majlis? When our majalis begins and someone is reciting the Quran, for example, do we sit and give the Quran the respect it deserves? Or do we just sit and talk through it? When someone is speaking and sharing beneficial knowledge with us, do we sit and listen out of courtesy? Or are we too busy gossiping and backbiting each other? These small etiquettes, by the way, are so important, because after all, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam are with us and see how we treat their gatherings. In addition, Shaykh al-Qummi also states that when a person wants to do a ziyarah, they should put on a pure, clean clothes, and when they approach the shrine, they should walk in short steps with tranquility and gravity, to be submissive and incline one's head. What exactly does this mean? What Shaykh al-Qummi is saying here is basically that we should walk with humility. We really shouldn't walk with arrogance upon the earth, especially when we're walking towards our mosques, our madrasas, our Husseinias, for example, or even the shrines of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We should walk knowing the weight of our steps, knowing exactly the greatness of the place that we are entering. We are the guests of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and we need to start acting like it. Out of the billions of people in the world, we are the lucky ones to know her and her family. This isn't something that we should take for granted, my dear brothers and sisters. At the house that angels visit, they gathered, no care for the house that Muhammad had fathered. Where even Satan toward us surrendered, they burned the house of the man that I mothered. The heavenly rose that Muhammad nurtured, they struck it, broke its rib and left it withered. And with a broken rib alone I wondered, for years my tragedy will be remembered. Hated by the world, I told the world goodbye. Hated by the world, I told the world goodbye. Oh Fadhil, don't tell my children that I'll die. I passed away and saw Hassan in my eye. Holding Hussein uncontrollably he'd cry, and upon my chest for hours they would lie. Oh mother, get up! And to our cries reply. I watched the orphans that I had once mothered. For years my tragedy will be remembered. Hated by the world, I told the world goodbye. Oh Fadhil, don't tell my children that I'll die. I passed away and saw Hassan in my eye. Holding Hussein uncontrollably he'd cry, and upon my chest for hours they would lie. Oh mother, get up! And to our cries reply. I watched the orphans that I had once mothered. For years my tragedy will be remembered. For years my tragedy will be remembered.